A witch's fire at midnight. The rain has been falling for a long time now. Not the kind of rain that rushes or insists on being heard. This rain has patience. It arrives softly, settles into the night, and stays. Each drop finds its place without asking where it belongs. I sit beside the fire, just as I have done on countless nights before. The chair knows my weight. The floorboards know the sound of my stillness. The fire moves slowly, breathing in its own quiet rhythm. It does not reach. It does not demand. It simply exists. If you have found your way here, then you are welcome. There is no door to knock on, no threshold to cross. You may sit. You may listen, or you may simply rest in the sound of another voice keeping the night company. Nothing is required of you. The cabin rests at the edge of the forest, where the trees grow close together. They have always grown this way, leaning inward, not from fear but familiarity. The forest does not like empty spaces. It prefers closeness, shared roots, intertwined branches. I have lived here long enough to understand that. Long enough to understand the language of rain and wind and quiet. Tonight, the forest is listening. The fire is steady now. It has passed the restless stage, where flames reach upward too quickly. Now it burns low and calm, content with its place. I add another piece of wood, slowly, carefully, so as not to disturb the rhythm. The flames accept it without protest. Nothing here reacts in haste. Time moves differently when it is not being watched. You may hear the wind pass through the trees outside. It moves gently, almost apologetically, as if it does not wish to interrupt. The trees sway, then settle again. They understand patience. People have always been curious about this place. About me. They call me a witch. It is a word that has followed me through many seasons, carrying different meanings depending on who speaks it. Some say it with fear, some with suspicion, some with a kind of quiet hope they do not fully understand. I have learned not to argue with names. Here, in this cabin, names matter very little. What matters is warmth and quiet, and the way the night loosens its hold when no one tries to control it. The firelight stretches across the walls, touching old wood and stone. Shadows form, soften, and shift again. Nothing here stays sharp for long. The shelves along the far wall hold jars filled with dried leaves, roots, and flowers. Not for spells, as many imagine. They are for remembering. Each jar carries the scent of a season, the echo of a day that once passed quietly through this forest. The rain taps softly against the window, a steady, unhurried sound. It does not change its pace for anyone. You may notice your thoughts beginning to slow. That is not something to correct. This story does not require focus. It does not need to be followed. It is meant to walk beside you quietly as you rest. There was a time when people came here looking for answers. They arrived with voices full of urgency, carrying questions heavy enough to bend their shoulders forward. They wanted certainty. They wanted protection. They wanted something solid to hold against the unknown. I would offer them a seat by the fire, a cup of something warm, and time. Time was always the most difficult part for them to accept. Most answers do not reveal themselves when they are being chased. They appear when they are no longer needed. Many left this cabin without the answers they thought they wanted. but they always slept more deeply afterward. Tonight, there is no one here but you and me, and the forest, and the rain. That is more than enough. The clock on the wall has stopped marking the hours. It does that sometimes. Time behaves differently at night, especially in places like this. You may feel as though this moment has begun to stretch, becoming less defined. That is natural. Time loosens its shape when it is no longer being measured. I lean back in my chair and let the warmth of the fire reach my hands. The wood beneath me creaks softly, familiar and reassuring. Everything here is steady. Everything here knows how to wait. There was a time when I feared quiet nights like this. I thought silence meant something was missing. Now I understand it means nothing is being asked of me. If your eyes feel heavy, you may let them close. The story will continue whether you follow it or not. The rain will keep falling. The fire will keep burning. And I will remain here, speaking softly, as the night moves forward. The fire settles into a deeper rhythm now. It no longer flickers or shifts without reason. It knows it has time. This is my favorite part of the night. When nothing is beginning, and nothing is ending. Only being remains. The rain outside changes its voice slightly, becoming softer, less insistent. Each drop finds its place and stays there for a moment before disappearing. The night teaches patience without explanation. People often believe witches are drawn to power. But power is loud. And loud things rarely listen. What draws me is quiet. The kind of quiet that does not ask questions. I remember nights long ago when I sat exactly like this, younger and less settled. The fire was smaller then. The shadows sharper. I did not yet understand how gentle darkness could be. The forest taught me. It does not rush the sunrise. It does not resist the changing seasons. It waits. If you are still listening, you may notice how the story moves. It does not pull you forward. It does not push you anywhere. It stays beside you. That is intentional. Some stories are meant to be followed closely. Others are meant to be rested within. This is the second kind. The chair shifts slightly as I adjust my position. The sound blends easily with the rain. Nothing here exists alone. I once believed I needed to explain myself, to justify the quiet, to give shape to things that were already whole. I no longer do. The firelight reaches the corners of the room but does not insist on filling them. Some shadows prefer to remain untouched. They are not hiding. They are resting. You may feel your thoughts drifting now, becoming less distinct. That is not distraction. That is permission. The mind, when left alone, knows exactly where it wants to go. Most often, it goes toward rest. Outside, the trees stand close together. They always have. When the wind moves through them, it carries old stories with it. Stories without words. Stories that do not need to be understood. I listen without trying to interpret them. Understanding is not required. Presence is enough. If you have ever felt out of place in the bright world of day, you are not alone. Night has always been kinder to those who listen more than they speak. I add another piece of wood to the fire, slowly, carefully. The flames respond in their own time. Nothing here reacts in haste. Time stretches gently now. It does not press forward. It allows space. Once, Someone asked me what witches fear most. I told them the truth. We fear forgetting how to listen. The rain finds a steady rhythm again, settling into a soft pattern beneath everything else. You may notice it, or you may not. Either way is fine. There is no lesson hidden here. No message waiting to be uncovered. That is why this works. The night does not need meaning. It only needs space. I close my eyes and feel the warmth of the fire settle deeper into the room. The day has been long, but nights like this make the length of days matter less. If your breathing has slowed, that is good. If your thoughts have softened, even better. Sleep is not something to earn. It is something to return to. The forest understands this. So does the rain. So does the fire. The window glows faintly with reflected firelight. Beyond it, the world is calm. Nothing is waiting for you now. Nothing needs your attention. Nothing will be lost if you let go. Some nights, I speak more. Others, less. Tonight is a night for staying. The night has settled more deeply now. Not in a way that announces itself, but in the way weight settles into a familiar place. The kind of settling that feels inevitable, gentle, and final for a while. The fire no longer shifts much. Its movement is subtle now, almost imperceptible unless you are watching closely. And there is no need to watch. The rain continues outside, but it has softened again. It falls in thin layers, as though it has decided to become part of the darkness rather than stand apart from it. The forest accepts this easily. Everything here knows how to accept what arrives. I sit quietly, allowing the sounds around me to exist without arranging them into meaning. The crackle of embers. The faint brush of wind against the cabin walls. The low, steady presence of rain. Together, they create something complete. There is a point in every night when effort becomes unnecessary. When even listening can become too much. This is that point. If you are still aware of the story, allow it to blur. Words can soften now. They do not need to land clearly. The sound is enough. I have learned, over many nights like this one, that rest arrives in layers. First the body lets go, then the breath. Then, slowly, the mind follows. Nothing needs to be forced. The chair supports me without complaint. It has done so for many years. Everything in this cabin understands repetition. Repetition brings familiarity. Familiarity brings ease. I think of the many nights that have passed through this room. They do not disappear when morning comes. They remain, layered beneath one another, like quiet memories that do not insist on being recalled. The fire has burned like this before. The rain has fallen like this before. And it will happen again. There is comfort in knowing this moment is not alone. I once believed nights needed purpose. That something meaningful had to happen within them. Now I understand that the night itself is enough. The forest outside grows heavier with rest. You may sense it, even without hearing anything change. A deeper stillness settles between the trees. Roots press more firmly into the earth. Branches relax. The night holds them gently, just as it holds you. I notice my breathing slow further, without intention. In, out. Each breath softer than the last. If your thoughts drift toward places without names, let them go there. They will find their way back, or they will not. Both outcomes are acceptable. Long ago, I stopped trying to guide thoughts. They move more gracefully when left alone. The firelight no longer reaches as far as it once did. It does not need to. It has already given enough warmth. There is a kind of trust between the fire and the dark. Neither tries to overcome the other. They share the space. I close my eyes for a while, not to sleep, just to rest within the sound of the room. When I open them again, nothing has changed. That is how I know the night is doing its work. Somewhere in the distance, an animal moves quietly through the forest. It does not linger. The night allows passage without attention. I have always admired that. The way the forest notices without interrupting. You may no longer be following every sentence now. That is not failure. That is success. The story is no longer something you are listening to. It is something happening around you. I think of the people who once feared silence, who believed quiet meant emptiness. They had never stayed long enough to feel it fill in around them. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of demand. The rain shifts again, becoming softer still, almost mist-like now. It touches the roof and slides away without sound. I remain still. The fire remains steady. Nothing asks to be changed. Time has become less precise. Minutes blur into something wider, something less urgent. If you were to wake later and wonder how long you had been resting, there would be no clear answer. And that would be fine. The forest does not count time. Neither does the night. I lean forward slightly, adjusting the wood in the fire. The movement is slow, deliberate. Even small actions deserve patience here. The embers glow softly, deep red beneath the surface. They hold their warmth quietly. There is a lesson here, if one insists on finding lessons. But it is not important. What matters is this moment. And even that will pass gently. I think again of those who came seeking answers. How often they mistook rest for nothing. How surprised they were by how much it gave them. The night offers rest without explanation. It does not justify itself. I allow my thoughts to wander again, not toward memory, but toward sensation. Warmth. Stillness. The steady presence of the fire. If your body feels heavier now, let it be heavy. There is nothing you need to lift. The floor beneath the cabin holds everything easily. It has always been strong enough. I have noticed that sleep arrives more easily when there is nothing left to decide. No choices waiting. No tasks unfinished. Here, there is only this. The rain nearly fades from awareness now. It has become part of the background of the night. Like breath. Like the sound of blood moving quietly beneath the skin. The fire's light dims slightly. Not because it is ending, but because it is resting. I sit with it, keeping watch without effort. This has always been my place. If sleep has already begun to take you, these words will pass unnoticed. They are not meant to stay. If you are still awake, that is fine too. The night does not rush you. I have learned that the deepest rest often arrives without announcement. It simply appears, quietly, when nothing stands in its way. The forest understands this. So does the rain. So does the fire. The cabin grows warmer, not with heat, but with familiarity. Every sound belongs. Every silence fits. I remain here, speaking softly, though fewer words are needed now. The quiet does most of the work. And as the night continues to deepen, as the fire burns lower, as the rain becomes little more than a memory of sound, there is nowhere else you need to be. The night has reached its deepest point now, not marked by an hour or a sound or a change you could name. It arrives quietly, like a weight settling fully into the earth. Everything that could loosen has loosened. The fire has burned down to a soft, steady glow. No flames reach upward anymore. Only embers remain, breathing slowly beneath the surface. They do not hurry. They do not fade. They simply stay. The rain has thinned to something almost imaginary. You may still sense it, but it no longer insists on being heard. It has done its work. I remain seated by the fire, as I always do at this hour. There is no reason to move now. Movement belongs to earlier moments. This part of the night prefers stillness. The cabin feels heavier in a comforting way, as though the walls themselves have relaxed. The wood no longer creaks. The air no longer shifts. Everything has found its place. If you are still listening, your awareness may feel distant now. Not gone, simply softened. That is exactly where it should be. I have learned over many nights that the deepest rest does not come from effort. It comes from permission. Long ago, before this cabin felt like home, I used to fight the night. I believed I needed to stay alert, to watch, to guard something unnamed. But the night does not ask for guarding. It asks for trust. The forest outside has fully surrendered to rest. Even the smallest sounds have settled into silence. Roots press deeper into the soil. Branches release their tension. The trees do not sleep, but they let go. I let go with them. Breath moves slowly now, barely noticeable. In, out. Each breath heavier than the last. If your body feels as though it is sinking, that is not imagination. That is gravity doing its quiet work. The fire's warmth no longer reaches outward. It stays close, content to warm only what is near. There is no need to reach further. I have always believed that fire understands rest better than people do. It never fears becoming smaller. It knows what remains is enough. I think of the many nights that have passed through this place. They are not gone. They rest beneath this one, layered gently, like deep water. Time has almost disappeared now. Not stopped. Just released. If you were to wake later and ask how long you slept, there would be no clear answer. And that would be correct. I listen to the quiet inside the quiet. The space between thoughts. The pause between breaths. This is where the night lives most fully. Once, someone asked me what happens when the night ends. I told them the truth. The night does not end. It simply loosens its hold. The embers glow faintly, pulsing with slow life. They are not fading. They are resting. I sit with them, keeping watch without effort. This has always been my place. If sleep has already taken you, these words drift past unnoticed. They are not meant to be held. If you are still awake, that is fine too. The night does not judge awareness. I allow my thoughts to thin even further now. They no longer form complete ideas. Only sensations remain. Warmth. Stillness. Weight. The forest, the cabin, the fire. None of them ask anything of you. You are not required to respond. There is nothing left to remember, nothing left to prepare. The night has space enough for everything. I remain here, as I always do, speaking more slowly now, letting silence take longer turns. The quiet has widened now. It is no longer something you notice. It is something you are inside of. The kind of quiet that does not surround you, but holds you. The embers remain, glowing softly beneath the ash. They give off warmth without asking for attention. This is the truest form of fire. Not the flame that rises, but the heat that stays. I remain seated, my posture unchanged, my presence steady. There is no reason to adjust or shift. Stillness has become comfortable. The cabin feels like it is breathing now, slowly, deeply. The walls expand and contract with the night air, barely perceptible. Everything moves at the pace it was meant to. If you are still aware of the sound of my voice, let it fade slightly. It does not need to be clear anymore. The rhythm matters more than the words. Words were useful earlier. Now they are only gentle markers. I have learned that the deepest rest begins when language loosens its grip, when sentences no longer need to be followed, when meaning becomes optional. The forest outside has become almost entirely still. No wind passes through the branches now. The trees stand as they are, supported by the dark. I think of how often people resist this moment, how they hold on, afraid to disappear into it. But nothing is lost here. Breathing continues, slow and even. In, out. Each breath sinks deeper into the body. If your body feels distant, as though it is no longer something you must manage, that is exactly right. The night has taken over that work for you. The fire's warmth settles into the room, then into you. Not spreading, resting. I have always trusted the fire to know when enough is enough. It never overreaches. The night carries the same wisdom. Time has become something soft now. Not a line, not a sequence, a field. If you drift in and out of awareness, that is natural. You do not need to hold yourself in place. I remember a time when I believed I needed to remain alert through the night, as if something important might happen if I looked away. Nothing important ever did. What mattered arrived when I stopped watching. The embers shift slightly, releasing a small warmth into the air. It rises and dissolves without sound. Even warmth knows how to leave quietly. I listen to the quiet again. Not the absence of sound. The presence of rest. The cabin has grown darker, though the embers remain. Darkness here is not empty. It is full of permission. If sleep has already come, these words pass you by. That is their purpose. If sleep has not yet arrived, it is close now. You do not need to invite it. I allow longer pauses between sentences. Silence deserves space. The forest no longer feels like something outside the cabin. It feels connected, as though the walls are only a suggestion. The night has erased edges. I notice how little effort it takes now to remain still. Effort has stepped aside. There is nothing left to resolve, nothing left to reach. The fire will last through the night. The forest will remain. And I will stay here, as I always do. Sometimes people ask what happens while they sleep. They expect answers, descriptions, explanations. The truth is simple. Nothing happens. And that is why it is so powerful. Sleep is not an event. It is a return. The embers glow one last time, a deep red beneath the ash. Not a signal, just presence. I lower my gaze toward the fire and allow my thoughts to thin further. They no longer form images. Only sensation remains. Warmth, weight, stillness. The rain has completely faded now, leaving behind only memory. The forest has accepted it and moved on. Everything that needed to happen has happened. The night holds its breath, then releases it. If your mind reaches for something to hold, let it rest instead. There is nothing here that requires your attention. The cabin remains quiet. The forest remains dark. The fire remains warm. I have said all that needs to be said. The rest belongs to silence. If sleep has taken you, let it keep you. If it has not, it will. The night is patient. I remain here, no longer speaking, keeping the fire, keeping the quiet. And as the deep night continues, there is nothing else.